Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Maria Altman. Eric Schmid joined our newsroom a few weeks ago as our Metro East reporter, a new role made possible through the Report for America initiative, which aims to fill important gaps in local journalism. Eric joins me now in studio along with our executive editor, Shula Neuman. Thank you both for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to invite our listeners into this conversation as well. If you have a question or comment about St. Louis Public Radio's coverage of the Metro East, give us a call at 314-382-8255. That's 382-TALK. Or you can send us a tweet at STL on air or email us at talk@stlpublicradio.org. And Shula, I wanted to start with you. I know that we've long talked about having a reporter in the Metro East. Why do you think it is so important for us to have a presence there?
Well, I think if you look at our demographics of our listenership, about a third of the people listening are in the Metro East, maybe a quarter, something like that. It's not insignificant. And frankly, the population of St. Louis doesn't end at the Mississippi River. And the things that happen in the Metro East are impactful to everybody in the region, since we are tied economically. So for years, I've looked at that part of the region and thought, we just don't have anybody who is close enough, who is keeping an eye on things, and it would be so great to have somebody who is based there who could actually report on what's happening.
And of course, we should say we've done a lot of coverage of the Illinois, or gotten coverage from Illinois Public Radio, right, member stations over the years, but it's not quite the same as actually having our own reporter there.
No, definitely not. And it's just along the same lines. I look at all of our coverage across the region, and I realize we have gaps. It's not just the Metro East, but that was the one that I felt needed the most attention, the most immediate attention. And when this opportunity came along to actually have a body and in the Metro East, I jumped on it.
And we should talk about that. Report for America, the initiative. Talk a little bit about what that is. It's a nationwide effort.
Correct. And Eric also might be able to jump in on this one. It is an effort. It's sort of, I guess, philosophically is like the Peace Corps in that they are getting younger reporters and some experienced ones also, but people who are very interested in covering local news. They are specifically looking at areas that have news holes where there either is no newspaper or radio station, or there's very few resources for journalism. And they're placing reporters across the country in these areas. So we had already planned on having an East Side reporter, but when I heard about the opportunity for this grant, I thought this is really perfect. It'll kickstart the whole effort and make sure that we have a solid footing there. So.
And Eric, you went through a rather long process to go through the Report for America process.
Yeah, I mean, there was a long process in terms of applying. I mean, it's kind of like a clearinghouse. It's not really a clearinghouse, but that's kind of how I think of it. You apply to the program in general, and then you go through an internal interview with them, and then they match you up with the partners who they're working with, and then you interview with those partners. I interviewed here, obviously, and
sort of like a doctor residency program, if you will, sort of making matches.
Yeah, and one of the other things that I want to say is that Report for America they're placing people into beats that it's not necessarily just geographical like this one is, but it's also more, focused, like health beats, criminal justice. I know there's somebody in Detroit working on covering recently incarcerated people who have just come out of prison. Absolutely.
Well, Eric, you grew up in Colorado. You went to journalism school at Stony Brook on Long Island. Mm-hmm. What attracted you to public radio and the Midwest?
Well,
kind of a big change.
Yeah, it is a big change, and I get that question a lot, especially why would you want to move from Colorado? My parents have been lifelong listeners of NPR. I grew up listening to the radio, so it's kind of always just been there with me, and that's one of the reasons why I'm interested, is because it feels familiar, and it's something that I have enjoyed since I was in the back seat as a child. And that was really how I got into wanting to do public radio. It's what I had the chance to intern at WSHU Public Radio, and that was the first time, being on the other side of the microphone, the other side of the speakers, and I really enjoyed it. I just wanted to continue. And that is how I ended up in the Midwest. I had a lot of professors, I had a lot of mentors who said, you got to choose one thing. You got to go into the industry that you want, specifically if that's print or broadcast or digital, or you can choose a city and make it work from there. And so I said I want to do radio, and I can't be picky about where that leads me, and it led me here, and I'm
luckily
really
you wound
grateful.
up at the best place ever.
Definitely.
The St. Louis region. A part of that is you're going to be working at the Belleville News-Democrat. You're working for us, but they have been nice enough to let you be housed there, and so you're just getting settled in. You've been with St. Louis Public Radio for about a month, but you've been at the Belleville News-Democrat for just a few days.
Yeah.
And Shula, I wanted to talk with you a bit about, this is just sort of the next step in this partnership with the Belleville News-Democrat.
Right, the latest step, I'd say. Yes, in probably December or January this past year, as I was, again, trying to figure out how we could make our East Side reporting more robust, I reached out to Gary Dotson, who's my counterpart at the Belleville News-Democrat, and said, hey, we're not big enough to cover your region. We love your reporting. You love our reporting. I knew this as well. And I said, what can we do to work together more? So we basically came up with an agreement to say, we alert each other when we're doing stories that might be of interest to each other's publications, and we share it. And we, of course, credit the Belleville News-Democrat. They take our stories and credit them. Then I took it to the next step and said, hey, we're going to have an East Side reporter. And it would be really cool is if they could be in your offices. And they loved that idea. They thought it was great. Very excited about it. It opens up all kinds of opportunities. So yeah, we just moved forward.
And Eric, I'm sure from your perspective, it's good to actually live in the community and also work in the community. It makes it a lot easier to do reporting.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I feel right now is I can trade, coming into this office, the main office in St. Louis for St. Louis Public Radio is about a 30-minute commute for me. And I can trade that for coasting down a hill on my bicycle about 5 minutes. So I really like that just because, I can spend more time in the community, but it also means that I'm surrounded by reporters who know what's going on, who I can bounce ideas off of before pitching them to my editor.
Who just happens to be me, I should mention.
Behind the scenes there.
Yeah, but I think it's really important to have people who have been in that area for a while so that I can talk to them, so I can know what's up, what's down, and really be able to build out the beat in a way that helps the community more and not just play to stereotypes that have, been perpetuated in the past.
Sure, and I'm wondering on that point if there's anything that you've kind of heard from residents that maybe are some misconceptions that St. Louisans have about the Metro East, or...
Yeah, well, one of them that comes to mind initially is that the Metro East it's not a bunch of suburbs. It's really not suburban. I guess it kind of is suburban, but it's not suburbs. There are a lot of different small towns that have their little flavor to them that make them different. Edwardsville is different from Collinsville, is different from Belleville, and they all have their the different people who like to live there, the different kinds of festivals and activities that make them unique. And I think that that's one thing that when you live in St. Louis and you think the Metro East, it is a big region, and I want to be able to show that it has a lot of different aspects to it that, we might not really understand or know.
Well, and I want to point out we've, from our St. Louis on the Air Facebook group, we have a few story ideas for you, Eric. Okay. Dirk writes that he's interested in coverage of what he calls the, quote, collapse of the Democratic machines in St. Clair and especially Madison County. And Lindsay writes that she knows there is more to life than food, but she's interested in how the culinary scene is impacting Edwardsville. It seems so far away from St. Louis, but really it's not. And, Eric, do you think you'd want to cover culinary food in the Metro East at all? It seems like a natural pairing for a reporter. Food is usually a popular thing.
Oh, yeah. I would love to do that. I think that there's a ton of opportunity to do a lot of different stories. The stories that are more fun, food related, that can even be something where you're talking about agricultural farm to table stuff that it may be more hard news, or just, what restaurants are popping up, what do people like. I think that those stories are really, really fun to give a more, I guess I would say, better, route into the community that doesn't that highlights a positive aspect of it. I want to do that and find the stories that are fun and quirky and weird, along with the ones that might sound more negative or be more accountability focused.
Absolutely. How do you think listeners can help enhance our coverage of the Metro East, Shula?
Oh, as they do for everything, joining our Facebook groups, following us on Twitter, following Eric on Twitter, and communicating with us as much as possible. We love, as much as, Eric has a big job ahead of him because, as he pointed out, the Metro East area is huge, and developing his sources and developing story ideas, will take time and a lot of hard work. And listeners and audience members are the best way to help inform our coverage. So that's how I hope that our audience steps up, starts following Eric.
And this certainly isn't our first foray into having a bureau. We have Jonathan All in Rolla, and as of today, we have Jacqueline Driscoll, who is going to be our new Jefferson City reporter covering government.
Yes, this is my evil plan to take over Missouri with our news coverage. not really, but yeah. Now we have 3 bureaus right now, which poses challenges organizationally, because it's very important that Eric and Jacqueline and Jonathan and Rolla, that they all feel that they are a part of our station. But at the same time, they are providing depth and breadth to our coverage by not being in St. Louis. And we really need that and value that.
Absolutely. Well, Eric, it's great to welcome you here. I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot more stories. You've already filed several stories and are going to be looking into some things coming up very soon.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, and Shula Neuman, of course, executive editor of St. Louis Public Radio. Thank you for joining us as well.
My pleasure.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.